I was sitting at the kitchen counter, flipping through the kind of letters that change lives. Caltech, Columbia, Stanford, all with scholarships, all with my name at the top, spelled out in big bold letters like they finally saw me. I'd busted my ass for those. 4 years of sleepless nights, skipped parties, double shifts tutoring just to look competitive on paper. And I did it. I made it. Dad walked in first, rubbing his eyes like he'd just rolled out of bed. Mom followed, arms crossed, mouth tight like she'd bitten into something sour. I looked up and said, "Stanford gave me the full ride. I'm leaning toward them." "That's great, Tyler," Dad said. But his voice was flat, like someone congratulating a neighbor's kid, not his own son. Mom didn't even fake a smile. Before I could say anything else, she gestured toward the table. "Sit down. We need to talk about the future of the family." That sentence should have sent up flares, but I was still caught up in the high of finally winning something. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I sat down, my hands were still holding the Stanford letter. Dad cleared his throat, and Mom jumped right in. "It's about your college fund," she said. "We've made a decision." That's when I knew. "You're not gonna like it," Dad added. My stomach dropped. "What decision?" Mom exhaled hard, like she was the one being wronged. "We gave it to Derek." I blinked. "What?" "Your brother's working on something big," Dad said. "A new prototype. It could change everything. He just needed a little capital." $214,000 isn't a little capital, I said, my voice starting to rise. Mom didn't flinch. "We believe in him. This could be his breakthrough." "You gave him all of it? Everything?" Dad nodded. "It's not the end of the world. You've got options, loans, maybe community college for a couple years. And Derek gets a blank check? It's not like that," Mom said. "You should be proud. You're helping build something real, a future." I stood up, the Stanford letter crumpling in my hand. "I earned that money, every cent." "You're young. You'll bounce back," Dad said, like I'd twisted an ankle instead of getting blindsided. Mom touched my arm. "We had to make a choice." I pulled away. "Yeah, you did." Then I turned and walked out before I said something I wouldn't be able to take back. I went straight upstairs. My hands were still shaking, but not from sadness, from pure rage. They probably expected me to slam the door and cry into my pillow. Instead, I grabbed my old duffel bag from under the bed and started packing. Fast. Clean socks, 2 pairs of jeans, 3 t-shirts, my laptop, passport, social card. I opened the top drawer of my desk. My stash was still there, $180 in cash from tutoring neighborhood kids. It wasn't much, but it would get me somewhere. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the Stanford portal. The cursor hovered over the Accept Offer button for a second. Then I backed out, opened my email, and typed, Subject, Offer of admission. "Thank you for the opportunity. I'm declining the offer due to a change in personal circumstances." Click. Sent. Then I sent another. This one to my parents. "You picked your side. I'm picking mine. Don't look for me." That was it. I didn't leave a dramatic note or throw a tantrum. I zipped the bag, turned off the lights, and opened my window like I used to sneak out back in high school. As I climbed down the old lattice, headlights cut across the driveway. Derek's BMW rolled up like clockwork. Brand new, matte black, probably paid for with my college fund. I ducked behind the shrubs and waited. The engine cut, and the door slammed. "Derek!" Mom's voice shot out like she'd just seen her long-lost war hero return. She wrapped him in a hug so tight it looked like she might cry. I slipped past the garage, cut across the backyard, and didn't look back. The bus station was about 2 miles away. I walked the whole thing with my hood up and my heartbeat pounding like a drum in my ears. Bought a ticket to Boston with cash and caught the night bus an hour later. We pulled out of Connecticut around midnight. I sat alone, row to myself, bag on the floor, jacket rolled into a pillow. Couldn't sleep. My mind kept running through every scholarship essay I wrote, every hour I spent grinding while Derek played genius in the basement and got babied for it. By the time we pulled into South Station at 4:30 in the morning, my back was stiff and my stomach was growling. I got off, walked a couple blocks in the dark, and found an all-night diner with flickering neon and 2 customers inside. I slid into a booth near the window. The waitress walked over. She looked like she'd seen some things. Late 40s, tired eyes, but kind. "What'll it be, hon?" "Coffee, toast," I said, counting my bills before I handed her a 5 and 2 ones. "That's all I got." She nodded without a word and walked off. I sat there, hands wrapped around the warm mug, staring out at the empty street. My whole body felt like it was vibrating, not from fear, from something heavier. No safety net, no backup plan, no trust fund waiting if I failed. But I was out. That had to count for something. The coffee was burnt and bitter, and the toast came dry with one sad pat of butter. I ate it like it was a damn steak dinner, because that was my first meal as a free man. I was wiping crumbs off the table when the waitress came back and refilled my mug without asking. "You look like you've been through it," she said, eyeing the duffel bag next to me. I gave a half smile. "Yeah, something like that. You got a place to go?" "Not really." She hesitated, then pulled a pen from her apron and scribbled something on the receipt. "Name's Linda. If you're not afraid of a little grease and garbage, we open at 6. Dishwasher quit yesterday." I stared at her handwriting. "Just a phone number and ask for George." "You serious?" Linda shrugged. "You don't look lazy. And you paid with your last $7, so yeah, I'm serious." I was back at the diner 2 hours later, hair wet from a gas station sink, and shirt change behind a dumpster. George barely looked at me before handing over an apron and pointing to the back. That first shift was brutal. 8 hours of scrubbing dishes, mopping floors, hauling bags of trash that smelled like hot death. But it was money. I found a rundown motel a few blocks away that didn't ask questions. Weekly rate, no deposit. My room smelled like mildew and broken dreams, but I had a lock on the door and an outlet for my laptop. After the second week, I realized something. The dishwasher gig wasn't going to cut it. I needed more. So I did what I knew how to do. I found rich kids who needed help with math. I printed 20 flyers at a public library and took the T out to Newton and Brookline, the suburbs where Teslas outnumbered Toyotas. I taped up signs at coffee shops and libraries. Elite STEM coaching, AP Chem, Calculus, SAT Math, email for rates. First bite came 2 days later. Kid named Henry, whose parents paid me $50 for 1 hour. The kid barely listened. His mom handed me a $100 bill and asked if I could come twice a week. From there, it snowballed. 1 client turned into 3, then 5. I juggled them after my diner shifts, sometimes running on the 3 hours of sleep. The money added up fast, $400 a week, then 8. I built a basic site with a clean name, Morgan Academic Coaching. No Rothwell anywhere, just a Gmail address, some bullet points, and a phone number I bought with a prepaid SIM. I kept it tight, no photos, no real bio, just results. Weekends, I'd cold walk private schools and offer trial sessions. Some laughed me out the door, a few gave me a shot. Those were all I needed. By month 4, I was making more from tutoring than I ever made at the diner. I walked in on a Saturday morning, handed George the apron, and said, "I'm done." Linda looked up from the register. "You quitting?" "Yeah." She stepped out from behind the counter and gave me a hug. "You're gonna do something, kid. I don't know what, but it's gonna be big." I didn't say anything, just nodded and walked out into the cold. That night, I sat on the edge of the motel bed and opened a fresh document. Legal Zoom, name change form, Tyler Morgan. I typed it slow, like carving something into stone. No more Rothwell. That name didn't mean family, it meant betrayal. Tyler Morgan was self-made, quiet, sharp, dead serious. And I wasn't even close to done. I filed the name change, printed the receipt, and never looked back. From that moment on, it was full throttle. The tutoring business scaled faster than I expected. Word of mouth was everything. Moms in country clubs talked, college counselors took notice. I couldn't handle the load alone anymore. So I started recruiting. I hit college forums, LinkedIn, even Reddit boards. Found kids who got into Harvard, Yale, MIT, the ones who deferred for personal reasons, or couldn't afford to attend right away. I pitched them the simplest deal ever. You teach, I handle the rest. You keep 75%, no BS. Most were broke and brilliant. I gave them clients. They gave me results. I didn't sleep much that year. Between handling scheduling, chasing invoices, answering panicked parents, managing website tweaks, ads, brand voice, everything went through me. The name stuck, Morgan Learning. It sounded sharp, trustworthy, corporate enough to impress the rich parents, personal enough not to scare them off. Our niche was crystal clear, STEM only. No Shakespeare essays, no French grammar. If it wasn't science, tech, or math, we didn't touch it. I reinvested every cent. Didn't upgrade my motel. Didn't buy new clothes. My first real expense was a WeWork desk. Then a small office suite in Boston with a shared conference room and a second-hand coffee machine. By year 1, we had 12 tutors across 3 states: Boston, White Plains, Jersey. By year 2, I cleared my first million. Not gross, net. Clients weren't just satisfied. They were obsessed. Their kids were getting into MIT, Stanford, Caltech. SAT scores went through the roof. We had 2 students placed nationally in the physics Olympiad. I kept everything lean. Tutors were contractors. I ran admin with a team of 2, both college dropouts with chip-on-the-shoulder work ethics like mine. That's when the real doors started opening. One afternoon, I finished a session with a kid who just aced his AP Calc exam. As I packed up, his dad, a guy in a Patagonia vest and Audemars Piguet watch, pulled me aside. "You ever think about tech?" he asked. "I mean, I build landing pages and back-end stuff for our site, but nothing major." He nodded. "I know some firms looking for young blood, not the resume type, the hungry type." He handed me a card, Braden Langley, RSG Partners. I didn't know the name, but the way he said young blood stuck with me. After that, I started listening, sitting in on panels, crashing free networking events at MIT and Harvard, reading SEC filings and investor decks in my motel room like they were survival manuals. I wasn't going to walk in pitching a tutoring service. That wasn't the angle. But I was seeing patterns. Parents didn't just want results. They wanted certainty, predictable outcomes, guaranteed wins. That mentality, it existed everywhere, in tech, in finance, in energy. So I started mapping the long game. Morgan Learning would stay, but only as my launch pad. The real move was bigger. I wasn't just tutoring anymore. I was building a system, one that could evolve. I built a second site, not public-facing, just spreadsheets, trend maps, client funnels. I started tracking retention, referrals, upsell potential. We offered bundled prep programs, performance guarantees. Clients loved it. And I kept my name out of the spotlight. No press, no panels, no selfies with students. The brand was the product, not me. Still, the numbers got loud, and people noticed. One of our top clients was a private school in Jersey that sent 100% of their seniors to top-tier schools. Their headmaster called us the admissions whisperers. Another school flew me to LA just to build a strategy for their senior class. I wasn't playing the part. I was playing the long game. Every contract, every check, every dollar that came in, I reinvested. Ad buys, CRM tools, better servers, legal help. I knew the time was coming when someone in a suit would want to know who the hell was behind Morgan Learning. I wanted to be ready. One Tuesday afternoon, I was wrapping up a trig session with this high school junior, Ivy track, sharp as hell. We were in a cafe near Harvard Square when she casually mentioned, "My dad's melting down over his company. Says the new battery project's circling the drain." I looked up. "Battery storage?" "Yeah, some energy tech thing. He says the prototype's flawed. Big waste of time and money." Her dad's name clicked instantly. Anthony Chen, CEO of Chen Tech. Big player in clean energy, known for hardware that actually worked. After she left, I went straight back to my office and pulled every article, patent, and white paper I could find on Chen Tech's battery division. 2 hours in, I was already seeing the cracks. They were using a hybrid composite that couldn't hold charge under high-temp cycles. Same problem I'd watched Derek screw up in our garage 5 years ago. Only Chen had done it with 10 times the funding and 0 course correction. That night, I built a rough counter design in CAD. By the weekend, I had schematics, a bill of materials, and a sketch for a scalable test unit. I called in a favor from one of my tutors who was moonlighting at an MIT lab. We rigged up a demo cell using modified materials and standard lab tools. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. Efficiency up, stability up, cost down. Then I made the move. I showed up at Chen Tech's front desk and asked for Anthony directly. His assistant gave me the usual brush-off. "Do you have an appointment?" "Nope," I said, "but I have a way to fix his failing prototype." She stared like I'd just spit on the floor. You're a tutor. I'm an engineer who runs a tutoring company. There's a difference. 30 minutes later, Chen came out. Tan blazer, no tie, eyes like he hadn't slept in days. You're the guy who teaches my daughter? Yeah, but I'm here about your battery problem. He raised a brow. I'm listening. I pulled the binder from my backpack, laid it open on the table. You're running hot with no thermal failsafe. I'm guessing charge degradation starts after cycle 80. His jaw tightened. Here's my fix. Tested. Repeatable. Ready for scale if you've got the balls to scrap what you're doing and try something that actually works. He didn't say a word for a full minute, just flipped pages. Then he looked at me and said, You built this yourself? From a dorm-level lab and about $200 in parts. You've got a multi-million-dollar R&D wing. What's your excuse? He smiled for the first time. You want a job? No, I said. I want equity, 35%. I run R&D. You handle operations. We take it public or license it globally. I don't care, but I'm not just punching in. He leaned back, arms crossed, sizing me up. You're serious. Dead serious. I gave him the working cell the next day. A week later, I was running point on a team of 7 engineers, half of whom were older than my dad. Within 6 months, Chentech's battery division wasn't just stable, it was IPO ready. We filed patents, lined up suppliers, secured military interest for field storage applications. The same firms that once laughed off Chen's projections were now begging for meetings. Every time we ran a new simulation and the efficiency chart climbed, I thought about Derek and the pile of cash my parents had dropped into his endless failures. Turns out, their golden boy didn't have a monopoly on big ideas. He just had a head start I never needed. The moment Chentech went public, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Angel investors, VCs, early-stage funds, all of them chasing the same thing. Someone young, hungry, and proven. I took the calls, every single one. But I didn't chase clout. I chased leverage. I started small, bought 2 energy startups in Massachusetts that were already gasping. One had good tech, but no leadership. The other had strong patents, but zero business sense. I didn't fix them. I gutted them. Took the IP, folded it into new shells, scrapped the rest. Everything funneled back to me, quietly. I built a spiderweb of holding companies across Delaware, Wyoming, and Nevada. Each one had a clean name, clean books, and clean paperwork. At the center was Morgan Equity Systems. One private parent firm. No board, no press, just control. But even with the right tech, I needed someone who could manage the chaos. Someone who wouldn't sell me out or slow me down. So, I made one call. Linda, it's me. You still at the diner? She laughed. You think I'd leave George? He can barely microwave soup. I'm building something real. I need you. Operations lead. Salary, housing, the works. You serious? Always. She moved to Boston 2 weeks later. I put her in charge of everything that didn't require a lab coat or a patent attorney. Hiring, payroll, scheduling, vendor contracts. She handled it all. And never once let anything slip. Linda was my firewall. The empire grew in the shadows. I didn't do interviews, no social media. I wasn't in this for applause. I was in it to own, quietly, permanently. Every 6 months, I'd pull out the whiteboard and draw the map. Subsidiaries, assets, licensing agreements. When one company got too visible, I buried it behind 2 new ones. I didn't even sign things with my real name anymore. Tyler Morgan had layers, trusts, proxies, P.O. boxes, burner phones. But I still kept one tab open on my personal laptop. A Google alert for Rothwell Tech. Every few weeks I'd read another headline. Rothwell faces cash crunch. Derek Rothwell denies layoff rumors. Visionary startup struggles to stay afloat. They'd mortgaged the family estate, burned through the line of credit, launched a second round of funding that tanked before it closed. Derek was still chasing the same dream I'd already turned into a machine. And my parents, still clapping on the sidelines, waiting for their miracle. I didn't say a word, didn't send a message, didn't gloat. I just kept building, kept owning, kept watching. Linda came into my office on a Thursday, tablet in hand. Rothwell Tech's bleeding out, she said, not even blinking. They're quietly shopping for investors, maybe a buyout. I didn't look up. Who's representing them? Some boutique firm in Stamford. I pulled the deck. Same crap, new beau? I nodded once. Book a meeting. Use Morgan Equity Systems. She smirked. Want me to use your name? No, let's see if they recognize the suit before the face. 2 weeks later, I walked into their glass tower like any other venture guy with a checkbook and a poker face. I wore a custom charcoal suit, $5,000 of silence and steel, cufflinks sharp enough to cut. No entourage, just my tablet and the weight of 10 years they didn't know I carried. Reception buzzed me up to the 22nd floor. Their office hadn't changed. Same fake wood, same walls full of fake achievements. A young assistant led me into the boardroom. Dad walked in first. Gray at the temples now, but still trying to look taller than he was. He stuck out his hand. Thanks for coming. We appreciate you taking the time. I shook it. Firm, clean. Of course. Derek came in next, face buried in a binder. Didn't even glance at me. Just dropped into a chair like the room owed him something. They started their pitch, slide after slide, about a revolutionary battery platform. Modular, scalable, green, all the usual buzzwords. Derek did most of the talking. He still had that same fake confidence, the same vague technical lingo that sounded impressive until you actually listened. When he got to the specs, I nearly laughed. They were pushing a system that was already 3 years behind what Chentech had patented under my design. Same core architecture, same thermal issues, same trap. I let him finish, let him talk himself right to the edge of the cliff. Then I tapped my tablet and pulled up a single slide. White background, black text. One line, let's talk about your company's turning point. April 2015. Ring a bell? Dad blinked. Derek frowned. I waited. Sorry, my father said slowly. What's the significance? I looked at Derek. Still nothing. That's the month your company cashed out your son's entire college fund, I said, tone flat. $214,000. Handed it to Derek for a battery prototype that never left the garage. Derek froze. Dad stared at me, brow tight. Where'd you get that number? He asked. Only 3 people knew that. I leaned forward, hands flat on the table. One of them walked out that night and built a tutoring empire, then a tech firm, then a holding company big enough to buy this building in cash if he felt like it. Dad's face went pale. Mom stepped into the room just then, late to the meeting as usual. She stopped cold the second she saw me. Tyler, she said, like it hurt to say it. Tyler Morgan, I corrected. But yeah, it's me. Derek looked like someone knocked the wind out of him. I stood up slowly, tablet in hand. I'm not here to talk about investments. I'm here to talk about ownership. Dad finally broke the silence. So, what do you want? You're not here just to flex. I dropped the folder on the table. Contracts, terms, final numbers. You need a bailout, I said. I'm offering one. But there are conditions. Derek crossed his arms. Of course there are. Condition 1, I said, ignoring him. Derek's out. No position, no stock options, no consulting. Done. His mouth dropped open. You can't be serious. I turned to him. You spent 10 years bleeding this place dry and calling it innovation. Now you're out? Mom stepped forward. He's your brother? And I'm the one saving your legacy, I snapped. If this was personal, I'd let it die. They went quiet again. Condition 2, I said, flipping the page. You both retire. No more board seats, no more vision casting, no more backroom politics. You're done, effective immediately. Dad's face went red. I built this company from scratch. No, I said. You built a platform for Derek to stand on while I was shut out. And now you need the son you left behind to keep it from collapsing. So, yeah, you're retiring. Mom looked like she wanted to argue. She didn't. Condition 3, I finished, tapping the last page. We merge with Morgan Equity Systems. The new entity will be Rothwell Morgan Technologies. I take majority control. I run the company, period. Dad leaned back, arms folded, mouth tight. We can negotiate the terms. I stood up. This isn't a discussion, it's a take it or leave it. The room went still. Derek looked down at his hands, jaw clenched but silent. He knew. Mom glanced between all of us. Then she nodded once. We accept? Dad didn't move. She turned to him. Paul, we don't have a choice. He gave me one last glare, full of bitterness and pride and everything he'd never admit. Then he nodded. I reached into my bag, pulled out 3 pens, and slid the contracts forward. You made your choice 10 years ago, I said, looking each of them in the eye. This is mine. I walked out of the building I'd once been too ashamed to enter again. The glass doors slid shut behind me like a final seal on the past. My driver was already waiting at the curb, black SUV, spotless. He stepped out, opened the back door without a word. Linda was inside, laptop balanced on her knees, cup of tea in hand. She looked up. Well, they folded, I said, sliding in and shutting the door behind me. Whole damn table! She didn't even blink. And Derek? Fired. He'll figure it out or he won't. She handed me a manila folder without looking. You want to draft the press release or want me to take it? Already done, I said, tapping my phone. Scheduled to go live in an hour. She raised a brow. Want me to read it? Just added one line to the about page, I said. That was enough. She tilted her head. Which line? I looked straight ahead, voice even. Founded by a self-made entrepreneur who chose to bet on himself instead of being a family's second choice. Linda gave a slow nod. Savage. We pulled away from the curb. I didn't look back. No need. A few minutes later, we rolled past my old high school. Same brick walls, same flagpole, same wide green lawn, where I once gave that graduation speech about grit, goals, and chasing dreams. Back then, I stood in front of hundreds, thinking maybe my parents were in the crowd, proud of what I'd done. They weren't, not then, but now, they'd either learn to be, or they'd choke on the fact that I didn't need them to be. Linda looked over at me. What now, boss? I stared out the window as the freeway opened up ahead of us. Now we build something bigger, she smirked. Bigger than taking your family's company? That was just the opening move, I said, calm as ever. Let's see what they do when the guy they wrote off owns half the damn energy sector. The car sped up, merging into traffic like it belonged out front. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was chasing something. I was leading.